Welcome to the premiere of the Author to Author show with Domenico. This is where we go beyond the pages, guys. We dive into the creative minds of authors and uncover the deeper ideas that shape their work. Now, what a better way to kick off this journey than with a conversation about AI, power, and future. Today we have John here, John Calia. We talked offline already. We could not stop talking. There were some good vibes. And we had to start the official recording. Here we are, John. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll. I first have to tell our audience that you are presenting today, and you wrote, of course, Parallel Lines and the Awakening of Artemis. John's book takes us into a gripping dystopian future where artificial intelligence and government control blur the lines between truth and manipulation. Go ahead, John.
Hi, good morning, Domenico. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great having you here. Thank you
Thanks.
for being the guest of my actually first premiere edition.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Go ahead. Can you introduce yourself? Generally, tell us, please.
Well, sure. I am writing is my fifth career. I started life as a naval officer, spent 15 years in banking, became an entrepreneur, spent the last 20 years of my business career in consulting and mergers and acquisitions. But I started writing a blog at the encouragement of a friend in 2010. And by the middle of the last decade, I had about 120,000 readers. Decided to start writing books. And I became fascinated by the impact of technology on the public in general and on society. And when I wrote The Awakening of Artemis, I wrote it. I had come to the conclusion that we have signed up for what George Orwell predicted would be imposed upon us. In other words, instead of the central government imposing controls on our thinking and feeding us information that was to the benefit of someone other than ourselves, we had signed up with social media for the same kind of thing, and we were. If I project that into the future, and not the 28th century, but into the middle of this century, I project that, or excuse me, project that into the future, that we'll be living in a much different world where our freedoms are restricted, and we'll largely be even unaware what we've signed up for.
What a great topic. What a great topic. Going back to Orson Welles, and your book really raises some big questions about AI roles in a shaping art society. That's something I've explored from a different angle in Decoding Human Nature. This book is in display. That's actually was my first book that has been enhanced with volume 2. AI is not just a futuristic concept. It's already evolving alongside us. The real question is, are we guiding AI, or it is subtly guiding us? Your story really presents a world where AI controls the flow of information. But in reality, if you think about it, we're already seeing the signs of that today happen. So, like you were talking about, do you really think we're heading toward that kind of scenario where AI determines truth and reality? Or is there still a fiction?
Well,
And I have another take, John, because what
go
I'm
ahead.
using AI right now with Decoding Human Nature is to solve the world's problem. If you think about it, when the human mind can really connect with artificial intelligence, there are limitless possibilities. However, your concerns are very, very intriguing and realistic to me as well. I'm very open. So my point is, how does your book really? And I think their purpose is to entertain us, but at the same time to inform us and to warn us. Correct, John?
Well, I think so. I think of it that way. Of course, if you're writing fiction, you need to create a story and you need to have compelling characters. So the impact of AI is really in the background for the entire story. One hopes that a reader will get that message, the message about AI, either subliminally or consciously in some way. Because in effect, what we're saying here is, well, let's just take ChatGPT. I mean, The Awakening of Artemis is a book I published in 2018. And in my author's note at the beginning, I mentioned that all of the technology in the book, which I projected out to 2049, all of that technology is either existent in some form or at least is on the drawing board. So I wasn't making anything up. There's no fantasy about the technology in this. And it even foresaw ChatGPT 3 or 4 years before it became part of our lives. Although I don't think I got the technology exactly right in terms of how it was going to be deployed. In effect, what happens now is that uh, we rely on large language models to read the books for us and tell us what they say. It's as though you don't really need to read the book, you just have to talk to the librarian. So then you have to be concerned about who's interpreting the data and how is that information being fed to you. Clearly there's a tremendous potential benefits to AI in things like medical diagnosis and medical research, as an example. But then there are also risks. If so how we strike a balance between the need to promote a business environment where innovation can drive improvements in economic productivity and in our daily lives. How do you balance that with the need to control or protect the public from the potential downsides of AI? So that's a
those are
theme that
great
I really
concerns.
am interested in.
Great concerns, great concerns. I was on the kind of positive side. This is also a positive side of the AI in terms of uh, solutions, ideas, and solution.
Mhm.
ChatGPT, like AI and human minds, can really draw blueprint any type of solution if you use human logic, common sense. I spoke about human logic in my book, Decoding Human Nature. The definition of actually logic. Uh, so the way I see AI now, it's the highest point, and I agree with you. Where are we going after this point? Besides being the highest point AI, now it's always up to the human, to the people, to make the right decision when it comes to solving homelessness, when it comes to safety, when it comes to end war, when it comes to paying workers decent salaries, health insurances. So it's up to us, always to the human beings, to take action when AI can help us to blueprint, to help us to create ideas. But going back to what you were saying, AI is going to evolve. Are we evolving with AI, or are we staying? No, are we not growing along with artificial intelligence? Where is AI going? Because to me, their powers, like you said, they're kind of limitless. It's going to be very, very powerful. Now, would it need to control us in order to create a better future? What kind of society are we going into it? And I think your book is a great segue to all these questions. John, go ahead.
So I think, in my book, I contemplate that AI becomes a tool that government uses to control the population, and that people willingly sign up for because, government has learned from uh, companies like Facebook how to stimulate participation and spread ideas. But if you sort of look at things short term, there's a greater danger, I think, associated with the accessibility of this technology to all individuals, and some of whom may have nefarious purposes. So, for example, more recently, uh, there's a company in China that made introduced a new AI called DeepSeek,
Yeah, DeepSeek. Yes.
which has been made available as open source, so anybody can download it. We've also seen in Ukraine, for example, how the military has taken fairly inexpensive drones that you can buy on Amazon and use them in warfare, right? So let's combine the two. You download your AI onto a phone, you mount the phone on a drone, and you can program the AI. You can also weaponize that drone, right? So you could program the AI to be an assassin. You wouldn't even have to say to the AI, here's the person I want you to go kill. You could say, here's the profile of people you should kill. I mean,
Yeah. So are
that
we
kind of
good?
thing is within reach right now.
No, it is happening. It is. I agree with you. It is
Yeah,
already happening. I mean, AI is already shaping algorithms, TikTok,
yeah.
information. Why? Actually, I'm going to go a little further than you, John. I believe AI was also maybe present before, it was disclosed to the public. I mean, it's like any other kind of technology that the general public doesn't know until it is, safer to be disclosed, deployed, like you say, to everyone else. Now, so the point is changing the minds and the hearts of people. Are we just little kids with a little toy that is too powerful? Depends how we are going to use it. Like you said, these are all good questions. It is indeed a very powerful tool. Now, how are we going to use it? So that's why I focus on decoding human nature as far as changing and enhancing or sharing my thoughts and idea on how to evolve emotionally, logically, as human beings, and understanding our true nature of collaborative species. Sorry about that. As a collaborative species, and going to a path of sharing, collaboration, peace, synergies versus conflict and competition. However, Darwin talked about how competition is the drive of human beings, but mine and other takes, which are more logical, are talk about how collaboration is indeed the drive of human beings, as we can see within our human body. We have millions of cells, organs, and systems that work together. They work together as a system in a systemic fashion, in a collaborative fashion. So let me go back. This is a great conversation. I'm just so excited, so happy to have you, John. Your career has been so versatile. You worked in different fields. You can really bring up the kind of expertise from different areas. What happens, like I talk in my model to, you actually connect these areas. I don't know if it happens to you before, where you connect knowledge from different areas and try to understand patterns. You can talk on that. Feel free to it. But I want to go back to your actually character of your books,
Mhm.
and your books actually, plural speaking. How
Yeah.
much of John Calia is in the characters of Parallel Lives, for example?
Well, first of all, the protagonists in the book are female, so I guess there's about 50% of John Calia is missing, if you know what I mean.
I hear
But
it. I
I
hear
will tell you what inspired the character was actually uh, the fact that my granddaughter was born in 2018. That's when I started writing the book. And my granddaughter was the first female in my bloodline in 90 years.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
So, my mother was born in 1928. She had three sons. I had two sons, and my first grandchild was a boy. So when my granddaughter came along, she
So
sort of
your
broke
brothers
free.
didn't have kids either? Your brother didn't have any females, any girls?
No, they had sons.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I really the inspiration for the character was to sort of imagine my granddaughter at the age of 30. What kind of world would she live in? And because I was a graduate of the Naval Academy, I envisioned her as a, uh, a military officer, a war hero, somebody whose sense of duty required her to follow orders and pursue the mission that was handed to her from above, and who finds herself at odds with a society that is moving in a direction that violates her sense of what's right and wrong. So what the character's evolution is all about finding the right balance between freedom and giving up your freedom to to a master that's driven by technology.
Wow, nice. Very, very good, nice, interesting point, John. So it's also a personal growth, right? It's a
Yes,
journey of personal growth within
right.
this system of AI, which is becoming harder and harder. It's easier for us uh, growing up in a kind of different era to to search for our true self. Now,
Yeah, I think, but I think the other part of this, of course, is that, if you want to write a novel, you have to have, there's certain themes that resonate, right? So this is an escape story in a physical sense, right? The character is kidnapped and then escapes, and so the the parallel evolution of the character and her belief system, in a way, is also an escape story. So while she's physically escaping and on the run from a global monitoring system that can sort of see where everybody is at all times, she's also evolving and escaping from a mentality that's been imposed upon her through a social contract that was in place when she was born.
that's interesting, especially for those people like that kind of leave their country just like me, that
Well, yeah, in a way,
emigrate
that's
and
right.
leave.
Yeah.
It's a way of leaving a system to encounter another system for whatever reason. Right, John? Did I make a good connection?
Yeah, you did. Although I'd have to say that most people that have been to Italy would ask you why you would leave that. I was there. I've been there 3 times in the last decade. Most recently, last May. Just a wonderful country that you come from.
I enjoyed both worlds, and I had to come to U.S. for growth. It was a sign. It was written my destiny, my path.
I
I
understand.
don't believe in fixed destiny. It was written within me to come here to confront myself with different social structures, with ethnicities, with
Hmm.
races. I found it fascinating. I came here with an open mind, and I think U.S. is a great country if you come here with an open mind and open spirit and with a learn attitude where you're able and willing to grasp and learn from different cultures.
Well, like every immigrant I've ever met, they will say no matter what our challenges are, whatever our problems are, whatever issues face us, this is still the best country uh, in terms of being able to pursue the opportunities you choose and achieve sort of the personal growth, personal, professional, and growth that you would like. And
Yes, it is.
I am
Yes, it is. Yeah.
eternally grateful to my grandparents for having braved a voyage across the Atlantic and settling here for the benefit of their children and grandchildren.
It is indeed a great country. It is indeed also very challenging. It's very challenging. That's what where the human beings do the best during challenges. My parents are they're World War II survivors, and I
Hmm.
can absorb that spirit of appreciation of growing through challenges like we're doing right now. This is a very challenging world,
Yes.
and it's up to us to adapt. And I think adaptation is one of the features that within our DNA as a species, as an organism in this world. And we have to really find that spirit of adaptability. And I think it's part of your character in your book as well. The kind of flexibility, the kind of ability to change as the systems around us change, because most of us stall, kind of don't like that change. It's not easy to change. Do your characters in your book change or go through some type of challenges, of course, action?
Well, the change is uh, understanding. Let's let me. So the character starts as a military officer, and she's a military brat whose mother died when she was very young. So she was raised by her father, who was a military officer. So you can imagine that she has a very structured existence and a very limited worldview. So we start there, and the evolution really is okay. Rather than having someone high up in society or high up in the military tell me what's right and wrong, you know, how do I figure out what's right and wrong? And then how do I reconcile my beliefs with the need to sort of meld into a society in a way that leaves me feeling, free to do what I believe is right. So there's an evolution of the character in that way, and uh, it gives me the opportunity to describe to the reader the way in which we have almost unconsciously signed up for technology that really dominates our thinking. So the character has to figure out how to escape that thinking before they can figure out how they want to live.
That is fascinating, John. Just simply fascinating. And I hope our readers, our viewers, will get your book. I think you just bring all your experiences and imagination, creativity together in a nice series. And I also I can connect. I was in the military as well. I was a military officer in Italy just for a year and a half before it became mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
They were waiting for me to serve. I was 26 years old, so I was already a grown man going into the military experience. That's
Wow. See,
that's
I was young enough to be dumb at 18.
I know that's what most people, but I did after college there. So
Right.
and I love it. I love that thing. It formed me. It gave me strength every time I look back in our past. In my past, I just found strength in those with that amazing experience. It cost me 2 years of my life, but it was so rewarding. I was a lieutenant in one of the bases back down in Sicily, Palermo, for
Hmm.
10 months. I was
Yeah.
the one-star lieutenant, and it was over all only like 15 months career, but it was fascinating, and everybody can really use that type of discipline. Just even for a few days, the kind of challenges to believe in themselves more and build some self-confidence.
I'd have to say the enduring lesson is that you learn that there are really no excuses.
Correct.
And that's a mentality that we would all benefit from. You know, uh, you see so many people that pose as victims now, and I believe that uh, it, they are victims because they either choose to be or because we have a society that now glorifies victims in some respect. So it's difficult to break out of that mentality. But what the military teaches you is, um, there's no difference between I actually use this in my consulting practice sometimes. I ask people, what's the difference between a reason and an excuse? And the answer is spelling. Because in effect, what we're saying is there's no excuse for uh, failure. Uh, you have to look at every failure, figure out how you could have done things differently, and commit to doing something different in the future in order to avoid that failure. And that's I think a critical way in which we achieve personal growth.
I make a connection with AI. I think that's a great statement. Thanks for sharing actually what you use with your consulting business. It's a very powerful. It's very powerful. And AI also, you know if you're familiar with the movie The Matrix, where the perfect machine kind of needs a kind of analogy,
Hmm.
not analogy, kind of anomaly. So we need to fail sometimes to reset the system.
Yes.
Do you feel me, John? I mean, we don't want to be stagnant. That's part of the anti-stagnation part where we need that type of failure. So I think it's part of my book, Decoding Human Nature, is the positive thinking that people should acquire when they look at themselves going through struggles and obstacles, because those are lessons. Those are really steps that can help them grow and progress in life. But you need that strength, John. You need that drive, that will that not everyone has openly. So it's up, and I think your book and my book are really key to this kind of hopefully awakening needed before we have this AI out of control, right? It's a good conversation because we're talking about the same thing of are we ready for AI, basically, right, John? Are we ready for AI
Well,
emotion?
I think that's right. I mean, I would say, it's interesting. I participate in a peer group. We get together about 3 times a year. And one of the exercises that somebody proposed to open us up was to give everybody sort of 5 or 10 minutes to tell their life story in a very concise way. And if you listen to everyone, and there were about 15 of us around the table, what people talked about the most was not their successes, but their failures. because it's the struggle to overcome the failures that defines who you are.
Yes,
And
yes,
it's the pride that you take in dealing with uh, adverse conditions that really help us define for ourselves who we are. So I very much identify with what you're saying, and I think uh, if we're going to decode human nature, that's a key element of it.
absolutely. And let me tell you, our audience, to read. I want to buy your book. I want to read your book. I want to review your book on Amazon, and for many reasons at this point, because I think you really made a strong case for me to read it, and I hope you made a case for our readers and viewers. Now, uh, well, I'm going to have you back. Okay, I think I'm going to have you back. I don't want to get too long. I know it's the premiere, so we kind of passed the 15 minutes mark. Is our premiere, so I'm fine with that. I like that. To have flexible rules, bending the rules, not too much though. But let's talk about the legacy. We have started with legacy. You actually, I don't know if you started off because we were talking just like this before we were online. So it was just naturally flow for us. We were talking about your legacy. I think I believe everyone should have a book. At the end, 380 million Americans should have their own book because it's their life story. Every life is important. Every life is deep. Every life is something that needs to be shared because we are the same. At the same time, we all have different paths. Now, what is your legacy again to close up this amazing premiere of our show? I make sure I save this. No technical issue happened. This is my first time. And let's go ahead and close this up with the legacy talk, John. What do your legacy want to be for your grandkids and grandkids when they're going to look back and read your book and think about their
I
grandparents or great grandfather, the great so forth.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that uh, first of all, I focus my answer to that question on my family. I don't have any grand notions that I'll have a lasting impact on society at large. But the
Yet,
way in
no,
which you
no yet, John, no yet. Go ahead.
you're too kind. The way in which we affect our grandchildren and their children, who I'm unlikely to ever know, is by setting an example for our children, for teaching our children. You give them values. You demonstrate your adherence to those values through your behavior, and that passes itself on down. I think it's fair to say that my children are successful in business and have stable family lives in no small part because of how they grew up and what they learned. And it wasn't as though I had classes every Saturday to teach them values. They embraced values that are part of not just the social contract, but the family contract. If you think about it, right, the
Yes,
only place where we can rely upon everyone acting for the collective benefit of a group of people is one family living under one roof. And that is the way in which we all leave a legacy for our children and grandchildren.
absolutely. I hear, John, and I agree. I mean, the family nucleus in our society is as other native and tribal structures. We're a little different, maybe a little broader, but we are structured by families. I think it's each one of us really embrace and appreciate the ties and the time and the connection that we have with our own family, even at second and first, second, and degree levels. We really will make a huge improvement for our societies. At the end of the day, I mean, we get attached to people that we spend time with, that we struggle together, that we live together, we experience together. I remember after the boot camp, the first 5 months, the first month and a half was very challenging. Then it got easier as the boot camp we became senior and so forth. But at the end of when we had our destination at the end of the boot camp, but after 5 months, I remember all this young man and women, young men only actually, they were crying, they were weeping They were weeping because we were separating ways, because we struggled together, we made it through together, and I saw them. It was just an amazing way to see them, grown men, just weeping and crying because of the connections that we made in those times. Now, actually, I want to give you a final one. What your reader, actually, John, give me your last comments about this book and why your readers should get your book.
I think it's a fun ride, first of all. I think most readers will connect with the characters and in some way connect with the struggles, even though they take place in the future. The comments that you'll see in the Amazon reviews or the Goodreads reviews suggest that people read it and came away with the idea that I was projecting a kind of a scary image of a future, and it was scary because they could connect it to trends that they see in society today. So it's all about characters who are compelling and who grow through the story. It's about adventure and action. It's a very fast-paced story, and it also should resonate with everyone who is sort of interested in the impact of technology on society.
Thank you, John, very much. I cannot thank you more for just giving your time, your knowledge, your expertise, and your experience to share with us. And we are going to end our premiere. And John, we'll stay in touch. I want to invite you again. Definitely, I want to have you again on board. We'll let you know when. Thank you again, and let's stay in touch, okay, John? We'll talk off the line in a few seconds. I want to know your feedback. I want to know your feedback. That's very important.
All right. Thank you very much.
No problem. Take care.
I've enjoyed being here.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye, everyone.